John Lynch a top 10 GM? And my answer is hell no. I'm sorry, John. I love you as a football player. I respect the hell out of you as an individual, as a Hall of Famer, as a safety that was lights out in this league. I respect you as a human being, as a man, as a public speaker, as an announcer. As a GM, to this point, the results are highly mixed. And with mixed results in the way in which we're looking at here, I don't think you can say that this is a top 10 GM within this league. Let's go through some of the rather large errors that have occurred. Solomon Thomas, no Mahomes, no Watson. Reuben Foster, Dante Pettis, Joe Williams. It's expensive acquisitions or trades. Malcolm Smith, most of us have forgotten about that one because it pales in comparison to the others. Weston Richburg, not money well spent there. Quan Alexander, didn't quite work out. D Ford, that one, I'm hesitant to put it in there, but certainly to this point with the money and the assets that have been given up, the production hasn't been there, but I'm very optimistic D Ford going forward, so I'm not going to trash talk that one too much. Trading away DeForest Buckner. We are all painfully reminded of that error this week. That is first and foremost in all of our minds at this particular moment in time because we're about to match up on Levi's grass up against Buck. Defo. Unbelievable. The huge trade up from 12 to 3. It's too early to judge, but it created this wild atmosphere because they decided to do it a month in advance and just create a fervor that I've never seen before in a fan base. They may have selected someone that they could have gotten at 12. It certainly looks like they could have gotten someone at 12. So there are a lot of questions that are fair to ask at this point. Again, too early to answer any of them with regard to that trade up to 12. I'm absolutely still on the Trey Lance bandwagon going forward. But as of right now, how they went about it, you could certainly ask. This year's draft class, how much have they contributed? The early picks. Yeah, the great later picks. I listened to John Lynch's interview he was doing with Matt Mayoko, and he talked about some of the things they hit on. He's like, we got a bunch of George Kittles. A bunch of George Kittles? You barely have one George Kittle. You don't have a bunch of George. You hit on multiple players in the 5th round, but let's get more consistent in hitting on the first round talents. That's supposed to be the easier round of the two. You can tell I may be frustrated at this point, but I'm left with more questions about John than I have about Kyle, if I'm being honest. I want to know how the power dynamic is actually playing out behind the scenes. Yes, I know Kyle had some influence on some of these draft picks. Yes, I heard the story of him targeting Joe Williams. Yes, I believe that he targets the wide receivers, that it was probably Kyle's influence that led to the trade up for Dante Pettis and Brandon Ayuk. It's hard to know which personnel decisions are purely John and which have been influenced in some significant way by Kyle.